girls, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be pretty much just walking you through how I studied for the ACT. So when you're watching this, it is Sunday, but I just took the ACT on Tuesday, so I don't really know my score, but I will tell you everything that I did to prepare, my study plan, and all of the above. So if you want to subscribe to my channel to see more from me, go and hit that subscribe button and then hit the bell so you never miss another one of my videos. I try to post every single Sunday, and sometimes I've been posting a little bit of shorts. So yeah, let's just get straight on into what I did to prepare myself for the ACT. So let's talk about how I studied and my study plan. So my ACT scheduled through the school was March 7th, and I knew this from like day one of this school year. So pretty much what I did was my first semester, like I would say September through December, I pretty much just did an ACT question of the day through, I think it's like Kaplan, don't really know how to pronounce it, and I did it every day, and then I used my Notion and kind of tracked which ones I got right and which ones I got wrong. So then I could study those again and study that specific section that I got wrong. If you didn't know, the ACT is, the first section is English. It is literally the biggest portion of the test. Then you have math, then you have reading, then you have science. So I really made sure that I figured out which ones I was struggling with and then studied from there. I also, in my school, we had ACT Thursdays in my Avid class. If you don't know what Avid is, please look it up. I don't have time to really get into the nitty-gritty of that, but it's pretty much a college prep course, and it stands for Advancement via Individual Determination, and it kind of just prepares you for college. So that's what I've been doing, and we did different sections. I feel like first semester we really just focused on the English section because, again, that is like the most weighted out of all of the scores, so you really need to understand how to take that. So that is pretty much what we focused on first semester. It was very much so just English. But then the second semester, pretty much what I did was I joined an ACT prep course. If you can, you should join one. If you cannot, you could just get the ACT prep book. I've heard those are really good, but since I was on the ACT prep course, I didn't do that. So pretty much what we did was we had our English, like we had 1 week where we were learning like just English stuff. Actually, it was 2 weeks. First, we did a pretest of all of the sections so that we had a score that we could like improve upon. And then we did the English section, and that took 2 weeks because, again, it is probably the biggest chunk of your grade on the ACT. And then after that, we would take a post-test to see how we learned and what we need to improve on even more. Then we took 2 more weeks to do the math section, and we did the same thing. Then we took 1 week for the reading section because it's less time, less percentage of your grade. And then we took a week to do the science. So I recommend doing that just because it just made sense and kind of taking the strategies I'd take from this video. If I was you, I'd have your little notebook out so that you can write out this whole plan. So first semester, literally just focus on ACT questions of the day, and because if you're a bad test taker like I am, I would start first semester like I did, but if you're a good test taker, maybe you should just do second semester type thing. So from September to December, it was literally just an overview. From January to March, it was like the nitty gritty, like you're getting into this deep year. I was taking notes of every lesson. I was marking it up, and I'm going to show you how I did that and pretty much me studying. So then the week before the actual test, I was just reviewing literally everything. And the night before, I literally just looked over my notes because you don't want to stress yourself out too much, because if you don't know the content, you're not going to know it the day before. Like, let's be so honest. So that week is really crucial because you're just reviewing literally everything and taking practice tests. I would recommend taking at least 3 practice tests, and I'll tell you how I did that as well. So let's go over the English sections I learned. The first thing you need to know is that there's 75 questions, there's 45 minutes to take it, and there's 9 passages. Which means there's like about 9 minutes per passage, but you don't actually have to read the whole passage. Do not read the whole passage. Let me clarify. Do not read the whole passage. You need to look at the answers and read the answers first, and then look at the underlined portion, and then read from the beginning of the sentence to the end of the sentence and read the context around it, because that's what's going to help you answer the question. Sometimes you don't even need to look at the passage to answer the question. Like, it just makes sense. Depending on your score that you are wanting, so like if you want a 30 or higher, there's going to be less amount of questions you can miss. I personally wanted like a 25, 26, so I could miss like 15 and 16. So that means you need to figure out what your goal score is so that you know which ones you can skip, or not skip, you need to answer everything, but guess on, because sometimes they stump you a little bit. Another thing you need to know is really easy to figure out is what point of view it's coming from. Like, is it in first person, second person, or third person? Usually it's either in first or third. So you need to figure that out so that you can eliminate your answers. And another thing you need to look for is like, is it in present tense or past tense? Because that's going to help you also eliminate possible answers and leave you with the first possible one. Another thing is when it tells you like delete a portion, read the deleted one first, like read the sentence without that deleted part, and then if it makes sense, circle that one. It's always D, circle delete. If it doesn't, then you have to look at the other answers and figure out which one makes sense. So those are like the key points of English. It is just figuring out the narration, the points of view, and like figuring out how to cooperate with the questions. Now, when it comes to reading is pretty much just timing. Figure out if you can read fast and you have good comprehension skills, then figure out what you want to do. A lot of the time, depending on the score you want, if you want a 30 or higher, you need to read all 4 of them, which gives you like an 8-minute span of reading and answering questions. Then if you want a 25 like I did, I guessed on one of them, which is literally just going through and putting DJ, or AF. And then if you want a 20, then you can guess to, answer to, but you have to make sure that you're getting the ones that you're actually trying on right. Another thing I did was I spent 1 minute marking up the questions and the answers so that I knew what exactly I was looking for, and that made it a lot easier. And then if there's line references, make sure you go in and literally mark it in, so when you're reading the passage, you know what you're looking for based on the answers. Again, read the answers before the questions, before you even start reading, because it just makes it a lot easier on you reading the passages. So the science section is probably the trickiest one to study for, because there is always a wide range of problems and questions and like content areas. Like, it is never the same back to back. So what I did for the science section was I didn't even look at the question, like the passages or the charts, until I read the questions. And if there was like a word I didn't know, I'd just skip it. I would skip that over that word and read everything else so that I would understand what to do. A lot of the science stuff is literally just reading charts and answering the questions. So if you can answer that as quick as possible, it is probably the easiest one to get right. There are 40 questions, and like I said earlier, the science and the reading have the least amount of answers, and they are also the least amount of score you're gonna get on the ACT. So when I studied for it, I literally just had to practice it. I practiced it 3 times. This is what I'm going to tell you. The first time that you practice should be like a pre-test. The second time should be after you learned everything. And the third time should be like your real deal, like you're timing yourself. The first 2 times, I would recommend you have your notes out and you like circle the ones that you think you're going to get right. And then when you answer them, make sure you get those right. And if you don't, then you need to restudy that particular part. That's what I did with the science section. I also would put like a little asterisk next to the ones I guessed on so that I would know if I'm a good guesser or not. That's just me, but I think it helped when I was looking over the answers. I did that on the actual ACT too, so that when I looked back, I would look back on the ones I guessed on and not the ones that I tried on, so that if I had extra time. I really did this out of order, but here is the math strategies I used. So when I was studying, I realized that it was literally just geometry and algebra 2. So if you're solid on those, cool. I really needed to refresh my brain on geometry because I took it last year, so I don't remember anything about it really. Other than like SOHCAHTOA, you need to know that for sure. There was like 3 different problems that literally asked about like the measure of one triangle or the measure of a square, and then it would be like sine, blah, blah, blah. SOHCAHTOA is really important. Also the Pythagorean theorem, so a squared plus b squared equals c squared, that showed up way too much on the ACT and on my practices. And also the quadratic formula, so negative b plus or minus the square root of blah 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 and then over 2a. Those were like the 3 most things that I like absolutely needed to know. One of the things with math is like you shouldn't study things you don't really know because it just makes it harder on you. For me, I just relearned or studied the things I already knew and then kind of guessed and moved on. Sometimes you just have to plug in what you think is an answer. So what I always do if I don't know something, if you know the answer, then just solve it. If you don't, what I did was I plugged in C or H, and if it was lower than what it needed to be, I would go to like the next possible one. If it was higher, then I'd go back to A and B. So those are like things that you just need to know over time. The math section is 60 questions for 60 minutes, but like if you're guessing on some of them, you'll have enough time to actually work through the problems you do know. Math is one of those things where you just need to review all the stuff you know already so that you can focus kind of on things you know, kind of not. I personally just focused on like geometry, algebra 2, pre-algebra, all of that, because that is like the majority of the test. Sometimes you'll see like logging. I don't even know what that is, you guys. So I didn't even focus on that. I was like, skip and move on. So that is my math section. Again, this is the second most important part of the test. It always goes English, math, reading, science. So let's do a little overview of the things that I think are the most important. Number 1 is that study plan I talked about. Depending on what type of test taker you are, it depends on how much time you'll need to actually study. Again, it took me like from September to March to actually study everything. And like at first it wasn't super in depth, and then eventually I did go more in depth. So that's one thing you need to like realize. And then another thing is realizing like your strong suit. So like if English is not your thing, then you need to really focus on the math and science section, like really hard, so that those are really high grades, and then the English section could be lower grades. Personally, I think that kind of helped me. Also knowing the fact that like the one that weighs the most is the English section, so just understanding like how it works was what helped me study for it. Again, I did do the 3 practice tests. So the first one, I did my notes. Right here, I'm pretty much circling the ones that I think I'm gonna do well on, or the ones I know to do. When you're practicing, it's easy to do that. Another thing I would recommend doing is just having your notes out so that you know what you're doing, because it just makes more sense. And then with the English one, I literally wrote the type of question it was. Like, is it which word is the best choice? Is it asking for a change of punctuation? Is it a wrong? Like, which one is wrong out of these 4? So those are the types of things I did when I was practicing the first 2 times. The 3rd time needs to be like you pretending it's the actual real deal ACT. Like you need to time yourself, you need to figure out like what you're gonna do, no music, no nothing. But when you're practicing, I put on music. When it's the 3rd time, there needs to be no music. So that is everything that I did when I was studying for the ACT. I hope that kind of helps you a little bit. Again, I don't know my score, but like, is it really important? Not really. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss another one of my videos, and stay tuned for next Sunday's video, because I promise you guys it will be an amazing one. If you stayed until this point, comment a tree emoji. I don't know, I'm feeling green. So yeah, see you guys next week. Bye guys.